You can find some girl over there, just don't bring her home. I said, yeah.
There's no answer. There's no way that would have been well, no matter what you're going to say. Nice.
It is a nice paper. Is that where he's gonna keep it over there?
No, he said he's going to bring it back to the States. And I said, well, I'll cruise it back with you. He says, okay. He says, I'll take a party crew. You know, week and a half across some
Yeah.
body of water. I don't know. But this is a picture like of the living area, right? It does, doesn't it? And then he's got it's out of the water right now, getting fitted for everything.
That's it. So,
Right. Yeah. It's not out of the water yet. He's putting a swim platform on the back, and on the tower he's putting 800 watts worth of solar panels. He says I'll be able to go off the grid for weeks. Fun. He flies for a government contractor there. Cell phone model. He's one of them spooky pilots. Yeah, I just thought, 2 people within a week invite me to go out of the country. Telling my wife it'd be like talking to that chair. She won't do it.
you won't do it?
There's no interest. It's okay. Don't get mad. Yeah, that's what I'd rather do. Yeah.
Let the record show 6 o'clock. We'll call a meeting to order. Sarah, we give the roll call.
Here.
Present?
Here.
Present.
Present.
Here. Here.
Okay, we have a quorum. Have the agenda in front of you.
Move to approve.
No changes. A motion by Mr. Goff to approve the agenda.
Second.
Second by Mr. Whitaker. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Yes. Do we have anyone to speak under the open governmental? No one here to speak to us? Approval of the meeting minutes?
Move to approve.
Second.
They're on. Can you hear us now? Is that...
Maybe you want to come up to the front. There are some seats up here that are available.
If we turn it up, I think we get feedback in the speakers. It might. That's not good.
He's a big man. Hopefully that's a little better for you. Okay, we have the approval of the meeting minutes. I had a motion by Mr. Goff and second by Mr. Lewis, I believe,
Yes.
to approve the minutes. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. One abstention. Orton, 2 abstentions. Okay, the first item on the agenda is a public hearing, Communities of Burwell North.
So the first public hearing tonight is a request for final plat approval. The project is community in the Birdwell, phase 5, lots D7 through D8, and H12 through D8. File is 2106. The developer is Birdwell Roberts Land Surveying. It's located in the Falling Waters District, map 13, parcel 10.4, and is located secondary route 8, approximately 1 mile from Lifetown. This final plat proposes the development of 10 single-family lots on approximately 3.7 acres to be served by public water and sewer. Final plat meets the requirements of the ordinance, therefore staff recommends final plat approval contingent upon receipt of the surety in the amount of $80,800, plat to be released upon receipt of that surety.
Again, this is a public hearing. Someone to represent the project?
Yes, project.
Thank you. It's your opportunity. If you have comments or questions you have regarding the project, please come forward, state your name and any questions you might have.
Move public hearing be closed.
Let the record show that there's no comments from the public. Motion by Mr. Goff, second by Ms. Norton, to close the public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Planning Commission members, do you have questions of the staff or of the representative regarding the project?
If there are no questions, I move we accept staff recommendation and approve the final plat with contingency an amount of $80,856.
Motion by Mr. Whitaker, second by Mr. Deal. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. Next item for public hearing is Thistle Landing, Section C.
This public hearing is also for a request for final plat approval. The project is Thistle Landing, Section C, Phase 4, lots 16 through 25. File is 2015. The developer is Thistle Land Holdings LLC, and the surveyor is Roberts Land Surveying. It's located in the Mill Creek District, map 17, parcel 34. It is located at the intersection of Stex Run Road and Fagan Road, approximately 7.75 miles from US Route 11. This final plat proposes the development of 10 single-family lots on approximately 6.4 acres by public water. Final plat meets the requirements of the subdivision ordinance, therefore staff recommends final plat approval. There's an existing bond that encompasses this section of the, so there's no.
Thank you. Do we have anyone to represent the project?
Mike Roberts.
Okay. Again, this is a public hearing for Thistle Landing, Section C, Phase 4, lots 16 through 25. If you have questions or comments, please come forward, give us your name and any comments you might have.
Move public hearing be closed.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Goff, second by Mr. Lewis to close the public hearing. There's no comments on this section. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. Planning Commission members, do you have questions or comments to Mr. Roberts or of the staff?
If not, I move we accept staff recommendation and give the final plat approval. Since the bond is already encompassing, no bond is required.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Whitaker, second by Mr. Goff. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. Next item on the agenda for public hearing is Clary Grove.
So this is the public hearing for request for sketch plan advancement. The project is Clary Grove. The file is 5619. The developer is Rutland Properties LLC, and the engineer is Triad Engineering. It's located in the Apecon District, tax map 1, parcel 8.1, and tax map 10G, parcel 98. It's located approximately 0.3 miles north of the intersection of US Route 11 and West Route 9, left onto Meadow Lane. This project is proposing a 47,000 square foot expansion and parking lot expansion on approximately 5.8 acres to be served with public water and sewer. The developer is requesting an exception to section 705 to not install sidewalks along Pleasant Court. County Engineer Dirk Sansbury issued a letter of completion on January 7th, 2020, and stated that the sketch plan meets the requirements to advance to preliminary plan stage. Staff recommends granting the sidewalk exception, and with the sidewalk exception, the sketch plan meets the requirements of the. Staff recommends advancement of the sketch plan to the full stage.
Do I have anyone to represent the project?
Eric Osler tried.
Again, this is a public hearing for Clary Grove. If you have questions or comments, please come forward, state your name and any questions you might have.
First one is
Thank- Anyone else have questions?
The water and the,
Your name?
my name's Gary Jones. The water and, any problem they have out there, sewage. When you have heavy rains, the sewage overflows down into the street. Nearby houses and everything. I think that's something else that needs to definitely be heard. And to make sure that the sewage can now handle that. Probably in the past couple of summers. Last summer, yeah, we got out of it, but before that, it's almost every month we was getting it whenever we got any kind of a hard rain.
Okay, this is
Water management is definitely gonna have to be looked into by the county.
this is a sketch plat, so there's not a lot of information provided at this time unless,
I'll have pictures.
well, sure, we'll take the pictures, you can pass them out and we can put them at. Pardon me?
He knows about it. I think the county, I don't wanna stop them from doing what they need. I think the county needs to seriously look at, you know, make sure that it doesn't add more problems to it, or try to resolve the problem that we have out there.
Okay.
Before they build anything else out there. But they built a house out there, and that created a problem. The other problem, the big problem, was when they built the offices up at the end of the Warm Springs Avenue. That all came down on us too.
Good evening, my name is Esther Matthews. I came from Warm Plasma. Like the gentleman was saying about the water runoff. 2 years ago was the worst. People's basements and crawl spaces got flooded, and there was no relief at all from anybody we called. We talked to some lawyers from the water department, and that's all he was talking. Had a neighbor that had to move because his place was so flooded, got no relief. My yard is flooded, my crawl space is flooded. And also about sidewalks. People go up and down Pleasant Court like they're in the Indianapolis 500. And I think the sidewalks would curb some of that. It's still children that live on that block. Elderly people live on that. Handicapped people live on that. We pay our taxes, but nothing's being done. And I know we're in an orphan road, which I've never heard of in my life. But we pay our taxes, and but how can we remedy that from being an orphan road? What has to be done also? Craig Road is doing all this building up for prosperity for people, but when it hurts the little people, I have a problem with it.
right across Meadow Lane, or you turn backside, or you turn on Pleasant Court, to the backside of the road, where where Clary Grove's trucks go to deliver their products to Clary Grove. We have a concern that because that culvert is already compromised, that's caused some of the flooding issues, not allowing floodwaters to go through quickly. When the county came out and tried to clean out that culvert, they couldn't add very much, PSI to it because they were afraid, they could only add 1,400 PSI to it, where most households will use like 2,500 PSI and above to clean things, because they were afraid that that culvert was gonna collapse. School buses crosses nothing over that culvert. I have a concern that the construction equipment and the additional traffic is gonna be going over that culvert, and then we're gonna have a real mess when that culvert, where everybody goes, everybody going into Cleary Grove, school buses crossing right there on Meadow Lane, and everybody else. So I think that if that culvert, we're told to be that expensive to replace, I think that needs to be part of or before this building project. Whether the county does it, or Cleary Grove does it, or whether you guys do it, or building project, that is a real concern in the neighborhood.
I'm walking around 42 is aware that the village probably because if the public goes on the school bus stop, lawsuits are going to be not just neighborhood, whole county. I understand this has been going on since 1980. Lawsuits.
Anyone else wish to speak? If there are no further comments, can we close the public hearing?
Let's close public hearing.
Motion by Mr. Goff to close public hearing, second by Mr. Smith. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Public hearing is now closed. Planning Commission members, do you have questions of the applicant's representative or of the staff? Or can you perhaps answer any of these questions?
Questions? The stormwater, which is remember the appropriate mining regulations. Additions to the water. Doesn't.
That's the worst part.
You plan on putting some other name put it on there with the pension pond? Maybe out there. It'll hold the smaller storms and wait. I'm not sure what all of we're talking about.
I think our county engineer is cognizant of the culvert issue as well.
Gentlemen, the culvert in question, the older development, actually is not any standard whatsoever. There appear to be old water heaters, optimized water heaters stuck in the end. Diameter is also correct. Boulevard, water coming down through this typical Florida. The likelihood that it could collapse from and they're just contributing water in. That in itself is not anything rural. Or who's responsible for it and the roads and something that needs to look on how they open it up. Or we could keep things like pavement on Pleasant Street is very well. That particular culvert is not immediately adjacent to the problem. And here, upstream from this project. Valid argument, immediately adjacent to it.
Yeah.
Another argument that is where the pipe begins. And we divert the water from that point there, across the road, where it goes into our back. Because you have a storm water trough there or something for them that can get it away from that area, and you would solve the problem. Yeah. Great Road right now, for one parking lot, is tilted through there. One's off. Yeah. It did be backed up. Just made it so it's smoother. That's the thing, I really didn't realize what it was. Where is that? That's going to the old courthouse door, it's going to the other end of where our water would normally go, and it's making extra water for that.
Okay, well,
There's only one storm managed,
okay, we closed the public hearing, I let you come forward and make some comments, but to get into a dialogue, that's something that you're gonna have to do, with, the representative and with the county engineer, maybe outside of this meeting tonight, okay? That's all right. It sounds like the culvert is an issue, or some type of culvert is an issue. But, but that culvert is not within this project's purview. But we can't do anything with that culvert because it's not. I can't answer that. But that culvert is not part of this project. It's like Mr. And I believe he mentioned to you that you may want to form some sort of homeowners association that would take care of maintenance of that road.
As part of the highways maintenance would be the project. They do Department of Highways, they do private roads, with subdivisions. May call. Then
Well, I don't want to give these people false hope at that point though tonight. So it will come back again before the commission, and there will be some additional work that will be required, obviously. But it sounds like the orphan road is a real situation, and there are many orphan roads in the county. I think that happened, what, in 1944?
In a while.
Yeah, about 1944, 1947, something like that. they started with, not keeping county roads, but rather state roads, so, maybe Mr. Blake can give me the exact year, closer to 31, okay.
It was in the,
program is now closed down. Roads. Not familiar, you have to do research and the bill as part of this project.
Well, again, this is a very early stage. Your comments are very welcome here. We know that there's an issue, and the staff will do diligence in watching that the project gets through the subdivision regulations and approval process in accordance to our regulations. And if that orphan road, you'd have to form a homeowners association, that may be your only answer. I know you say it's not gonna happen, but it might happen. You might have to. Nobody wants to do it? Excuse me? Okay. Okay. Well, keep in close contact with the staff so that you know what's going on throughout the project. But it could be a while yet before we see any real documentation regarding stormwater runoff and the development plans. I would say, what, 3 to 6 months before you get everything done? Couple of months? Yeah. You might have to speak into the microphone. I don't think they're hearing you.
We're hoping to get, just,
Well, keep your eyes on the project, and maybe you can share your information with Mr. Bruce back there, and you can get this all resolved in a decent manner. I think there was a sign already posted for this public hearing. I'll defer to the planning director regarding signage. He says that the signage for this public hearing tonight was all the way in the back for Clary Grove and not where it can be easily seen upon entering.
They're required to be.
that's the front of the building, it assumes that would be the entrance. People would see it. We would never thought to put a sign.
Hearing sound good for your customers.
Our ordinance says. Parking lot.
The public hearing has been closed. These questions that you have will have to be answered by the applicant's representative or by our staff. Right now, we have very little information to look at, and to ask detailed questions, we can't give you an answer. This gentleman will have to give you those answers as he starts working through the project. Planning Commission members, do you have additional questions of the applicant's representative or of the staff?
are there sidewalks on any other part of the Ferry Road? No, no other sidewalks around here.
Not according to Google or the current Google Earth images. There's no parks or sidewalks.
That doesn't mean that we can't ask for
I mean,
sidewalks.
I'm not opposed to, for not allowing the waiver, so requiring sidewalks.
Well,
that.
what we'll do is we'll take two motions. We'll take a motion for the sidewalks and we'll take a motion for the, approval of the project. How's that?
Stormwater management area, sidewalk.
You might have to do some design work then, huh? Okay, can we have a motion, let's look first at the sidewalks. So we're looking for, according to the staff recommendation, they are, saying exempt the sidewalks in the, on the project. So I need a motion to accept the exemption or to deny the exemption.
I actually have one question for you. It says on your letter that it makes it, your letter makes it seem like the sidewalk would go on Clover Street.
I never thought about this. One of the buildings, they do that's sidewalk. Actually, it's sidewalk, you got sidewalk.
I think the idea of that before was the only real area to put sidewalks would be along Pleasant because Clover Street dead ends. If they put sidewalks on their property where the Clover dead ends, it would be in the parking area.
Yeah, I believe it's just. Correct.
Waiting on a motion for the sidewalks.
Motion to deny waiver.
Motion by Mr. Smith to deny the sidewalk waiver. All those in favor?
Second.
I'm sorry, I need a second. You want a second?
Second.
Okay. Motion by Mr. Smith, second by Mr. Whitaker to deny the sidewalk waiver. All those in favor?
Can I have a question or a comment before we?
Why not?
If the plans would come back, that would show an improvement with or without the sidewalk, then it could be reviewed again. Is that a fair statement? As far as the sidewalk and the exemption or that we're denying at this point?
Sorry.
If we deny the sidewalk exemption, then and they would come back, and their new plan or approval of that plan shows another exemption that has modified it to not accept the sidewalk again, or to have one in there that is not needed. Is that their statement that we would come back and vote on that again? Okay.
Unless until the next meeting.
That's what I was going.
The area along the parking lot disturbed. Back, I mean, if I don't distance the edge of that parking lot to the property line, but do we have to put a sidewalk in there if they're not disturbing that existing parking lot? Say there's only 3 foot. You have to try to put a sidewalk in that, then you have some of it.
I think the sidewalk ordinance was along streets and arteries, is that correct? And not so much along the parking lot, is that, so is that gonna be along,
Well, what I'm saying is, if it's along the street, it's still gonna be on our property. On the street.
Here,
But
what?
we don't have room to put it on our property. I can say, I'm off the top of my head, I'm wrong.
This is why this is sketch plan advancement.
that's,
This is why it's a theoretical thing, if there's not room for something, that's when the sketch plan can be revised, that's the whole point of public input, and for the planning commission, of this isn't set in stone, this is to get feedback from the public and the planning commission, determine what your next step is, so
And
just to say there's not room on this, you go back and you have to do your homework, and then you have to figure out how to fit it, so,
that's what I was getting at, cause it may come back again
right, that's the.
with another
That's
design
the whole purpose of the
difference.
sketch plan and public hearing and
Right.
input is just because it shows it on here, doesn't meet all the requirements, and there's no exemption granted by the planning commission. The applicant has to find a way to comply with the ordinance,
Correct.
Just redesign.
That's kinda what I
which
was
is the
getting
whole
at.
point of public input from the sketch. And now that the staff has information about road, failing culvert, and whether or not this development would contribute to whether the culvert needs place, those are all now things that staff is available that did not necessarily have available without public input, and the staff will absolutely look at moving forward.
Thank
So
you.
it's in your discretion.
So the motion has been made by Mr. Smith and seconded by Mr. Whitaker to deny the sidewalk exemption. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Let's see a show of hands for, ayes. And let the record show that there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ayes and 1 no. Motion passed. Okay, the next motion then will be to move the sketch plat forward.
I'll accept staff recommendation to move the, sketch plan forward and that all the comments be taken into consideration in the design of the preliminary plan. Second.
Motion by Mr. Whitaker, second by Mr. Lewis, to move the sketch plat forward, taking into consideration all the items that have been noted. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. Next public hearing is Verizon Wireless Jones Spring.
I don't know how to turn that up, so.
I can't,
They're mounted. They're mounted on this.
they're mounted, I can't move it forward.
Turn it up to something, start hollering.
So this public hearing is a request for sketch plan advancement. The project is Verizon Wireless Jones Springs, files 3519. The developer is Mastech. The engineer is J2 Engineers. It's located in the Jaredstown District, Tax Map 5, Parcel 51, and is located at 8190 Back Creek Valley Road, south of its intersection with Sleepy Creek Road. This project proposes a 2,500 square foot leased area for a telecommunications tower on 21.22 acres, which is not proposing any utilities at all. The developer is requesting an exception to section 705 to not install sidewalks along Back Creek Valley Road. This location is the Back Creek Valley, I think, Bow and Gun Club. County Engineer Dirk Stansberry issued a letter of completion on January 15th, 2020, and stated that the sketch plan meets the requirements to advance to preliminary plan stage. Staff recommends granting the sidewalk exception, and with the sidewalk exception, the sketch plan meets the requirements of the subdivision ordinance. Therefore, staff recommends advancement of the sketch plan to the preliminary plan stage.
Okay, do we have anyone to represent the project?
Good evening. My name is Josh Shikola, and I'm accompanied by Stephen Loving. We're both consultants for Verizon Wireless, and we work for MasTech. We're here to answer any questions that you might have.
It's a public hearing for the Verizon Jones Springs Tower. If you have questions or comments, can you please come forward and state your name and your comments that you might have?
Planning department staff received an email with one public comment that I'd like to read into the record.
Okay.
It says many residents in Back Creek Valley Road are in dead zones when it comes to cell phone and internet service and find themselves unable to participate fully in the electronic age we live in. I used Frontier for years. It was slow, often out of service, and the customer and tech service was so bad it had me in tears. Children are at a disadvantage in schoolwork, even often needing to travel away from home to do homework. Streaming, while available, is very unsatisfactory with constant buffering. It is hard to complete a project in a reasonable time, so we often give up. I am an older woman and a widow. The personal emergency alert buttons, i.e. I've fallen and I can't get up, will not work, nor does the wireless home protection such as ADT, Guardian, and others. Please approve and get started on data services in Back Creek Valley as soon as possible. Sincerely, Sharon Barkis.
Do we have any other questions or comments regarding the Jones Springs Verizon Wireless Tower?
I move public hearing be closed.
I have a motion by Mr. Goff, second by Mr. Lewis, to close public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Public hearing is closed. Planning Commission members, do you have questions or comments regarding Verizon Wireless in Jones Spring?
One motion or two?
Let's do two, keep it consistent.
Make a motion to accept staff recommendations and grant the sidewalk exception.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Lewis, second by Mr. Goff, to accept staff recommendation and to grant the sidewalk exception for the Verizon Wireless Jones Springs Tower. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passed. Now we need a motion
Make a
to,
motion with that exception, advance the sketch plan to the preliminary plan stage.
Second.
motion by Mr. Lewis, second by Mr. Whitaker, to accept staff recommendation and to move the project forward to the preliminary plan stage. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. Next project on the agenda for public hearing is Verizon Shanghai.
Yes, this is another sketch plan advancement public hearing. The project is Verizon Wireless Shanghai. Project is 3619. The developer is MasTech and the engineer is J2 Engineers. It's located in the Jaredstown District, tax map 13, parcel 30, and is located at 4457 Back Creek Valley Road, approximately 2/10 of a mile south of its intersection with Tuscarora Pike. This project is proposing a 2,500 square foot leased area for a telecommunications tower on approximately 12.68 acres, which is not proposing utilities. The developer is requesting an exception to section 705 to not install sidewalks along Back Creek Valley Road. County Engineer Dirk Stansberry issued a letter of completion on January 15th, 2020 and stated that the sketch plan meets the requirements to advance to preliminary plan stage. Staff recommends granting the sidewalk exception, and with the sidewalk exception, the sketch plan meets the requirements of the subdivision ordinance. Therefore, staff recommends advancement of the sketch plan to the preliminary plan stage.
Okay, do we have anyone to represent the project?
Good evening again. Josh Shikola with MasTech Network Solutions, accompanied by Stephen Loving. We're here to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Planning Commission members, this is a public hearing. Anyone wish to speak regarding the Verizon Wireless Shanghai?
I'd just like to speak in support of the for upcoming cell towers. I do have a question. 12 years ago, I had Verizon service. They were bought out by Frontier. What is the status of these Verizon towers? Will my Frontier communication work on these towers also, or is it strictly Verizon? 'Cause I know Frontier is in financial difficulty. I just thought I'd ask the question.
Valerie.
No, not really. Yes. Yes. Okay. Thank you very much.
Anybody else have questions?
Public hearing closed. Second.
Motion by Mr. Lewis, second by Mr. Goff to close public hearing on the Verizon Wireless Shanghai project. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed.
Do motions again?
Yes.
Move we accept the staff recommendation and grant the sidewalk exception.
Second.
You sound alike. Have a motion by Mr. Whitaker, second by Mr. Deal to accept the staff recommendation and exempt the sidewalk exception. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. Okay, now we need a motion to move the project forward.
Move to accept staff recommendation and advancement of the sketch plan to the preliminary plan stage.
Motion by Mr. Whitaker, second by Mr. Lewis to accept staff recommendation and to move the project forward. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. The next project is Verizon Wireless Mills Gap.
Yes, so this is another public hearing for a request for sketch plan advancement. Project is Verizon Wireless Mills Gap. The file is 3719. The developer is Mastech and the engineer is J2 Engineers. This is also located in the Gerrardstown District, tax map 31, parcel 2.1, and is located at 6294 Apple Harvest Drive at the intersection of Route 45 and Route 51. This project proposes a 2,500 square foot leased area for a telecommunications tower on approximately 83 acres, which is not proposing utilities. The developer is requesting an exception to section 705 to not install sidewalks along Apple Harvest Drive and Gerrardstown Road. County Engineer Dirk Stansberry issued a letter of completion on January 15th, 2020 and stated that the sketch plan meets the requirements to advance to the preliminary plan stage. Staff recommends granting the sidewalk exception, and with the sidewalk exception, the sketch plan meets the requirements of the subdivision ordinance. Therefore, staff recommends advancement of the sketch plan to the preliminary plan stage.
Okay, this is a public hearing. Again, we have a representative.
Again, this is Josh Shakola with Mastech Network Solutions, accompanied by Stephen Loving on behalf of the applicant. Here to answer any questions.
Thank you. So public hearing, if you have questions or comments regarding the Verizon Wireless Mills Gap, please come forward and state your name and any questions you may have.
Move public hearing be closed. Second.
Motion by Mr. Goff, second by Mr. Lewis to close public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, now we need a motion for the sidewalks and one to move the project forward.
Move to accept the sidewalk exemption.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Lewis, second by Mr. Goff. I'm sorry, by Mr. Whitaker, second by Mr. Goff, right? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. Now we need a motion to move the project forward.
Move to accept staff recommendation and advancement of the sketch plan to the preliminary plan stage.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Whitaker, second by Mr. Goff to move the project forward to the preliminary plan stage. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. Thank you, gentlemen.
We got one more. Another public hearing for requests for sketch plan advancement for Verizon Wireless Shallow Creek. It's file 3819. The developer is Mastech and the engineer is J2 Engineers. It's located in the Gerrardstown District, tax map 12, parcel 13, and is located at 523 Shallow Creek Drive off of Hampshire Grade Road. This project proposes a 2,500 square foot lease area for a telecommunications tower on approximately 16 acres, which is not proposing utilities. The developer is requesting an exception to section 705 to not install sidewalks along Shallow Creek Drive. County engineer Dirk Stansberry issued a letter of completion on January 15th, 2020, and stated that the sketch plan meets the requirements to advance the preliminary plan stage. Staff recommends granting the sidewalk exception, and with the sidewalk exception, the sketch plan meets the requirements of the subdivision ordinance. Therefore, staff recommends advancement of the sketch plan to the preliminary plan stage.
Okay, we have representative again.
Josh Shkola, Mastech Network Solutions, accompanied by Stephen Loving.
Thank you. This is a public hearing for Verizon Wireless Shallow Creek. If you have questions or comments, please come forward and make your comments known.
Public hearing be closed.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Goff, second by Mr. Lewis. Close public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Now we need a motion for the sidewalks.
Move to grant the sidewalk exemption.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Goff, second by Mr. Lewis. I'm sorry.
I
Mr.
said
Whitaker.
nothing that time. Second.
Motion by Mr. Whitaker, second by Mr. Lewis.
Yeah.
Accept the sidewalk exemption. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passed. Now we need a motion on the project to move it forward.
I move to accept staff recommendation and recommend the advancement of the sketch plan to the preliminary plan stage.
Motion by Mr. Whitaker, second by Mr. Lewis, to move the project forward to the preliminary plan stage. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. Should be getting some really good cell service here.
Our last public hearing tonight is a request for sketch plan advancement. The project is City National Bank, file 5219. The developer is City National Bank and the engineer is Fox and Associates. It's located in the Falling Waters District, tax map 14, parcel 67, and is located between Cordial Court and Hammonds Mill Road, beside Interstate 81. This project proposes a 1,993 square foot bank on approximately 1.7 acres to be served by public water and sewer. The developer is requesting an exception to section 705 to not install sidewalks along Hammonds Mill Road. County engineer Dirk Stansberry issued a letter of completion on December 27th, 2019, and stated that the sketch plan meets the requirements to advance to the preliminary plan stage. Staff recommends granting the sidewalk exception, and with the sidewalk exception, the sketch plan meets the requirements of the subdivision ordinance. Therefore, staff recommends advancement of the sketch plan to the preliminary plan stage.
Thank you. Again, we have our last public hearing, which is City National Bank. Do we have a representative for the project?
Clint Rock, Fox and Associates.
I'm sorry,
Clint Rock.
Clint? Thank you. It's a public hearing for the City National Bank. Anyone want to speak regarding the project, either for it or against it?
Public hearing be closed.
Let the record show that there is no comments. Motion made by Mr. Goff,
Second.
second by Mr. Whitaker to close public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Public hearing's closed. Okay, now we have sidewalk exception to consider and moving the project forward.
I will continue. I'll move to accept the sidewalk exemption.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Whitaker, second by Mr. Goff to accept the sidewalk exception. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Okay, let's see a show of hands for the ayes. 2, 3, 4. 4 ayes and 2 noes. Pass.
Sir.
Okay, now we need a motion for moving the project forward.
Move to accept staff recommendation and recommend advancement of the sketch plan to the preliminary plan stage.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Whitaker, second by Mr. Smith to accept staff recommendation and to move the project forward to the preliminary plan stage. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed.
Thank you.
Next project is Ujima. Somebody else want to say it better?
Ujima Tyson.
Is that where we fought the war? Ujima.
This is a request for preliminary final plat approval for Ujima Tyson lots, file number 40-19. The developer is Ujima Tyson, surveyors Terry Placanica, located in the Mill Creek District, map 13, parcel 33, southwest of Bunker Hill. This project proposes the creation of 3 lots and 1 residue to be served by private well and septic. Lot 5 is approximately 14 acres, lots 6 and 7 are approximately 15 acres, and the residue is approximately 80 acres. County Engineer Dirk Stansberry issued a letter of approval on January 24th, 2020, stating a review of the above-mentioned project had been completed and was found to be in compliance. Since the project is found to be in compliance with the 2009 subdivision ordinance, staff recommends approval of the preliminary final plat.
Do you have anyone to represent the project?
Great, Yannick.
Okay. Planning Commission members, do you have questions of Mr. Placanica or of the staff?
If there are no questions, I move we accept the approval of the preliminary final plat.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Whitaker, second by Mr. Goff, to accept staff recommendation and to accept and to approve the preliminary final plat. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed.
Thank you.
Next project is Linton Brothers.
This is a preliminary final plat, request for preliminary final plat approval for Linton Brothers Incorporated, file number 51-19. The developer is Linton Brothers Incorporated. The surveyor is Roberts Land Surveying. It's located in the Hedgesville District, map 34, parcel 7, on Hedgesville Road, approximately half a mile from its intersection with Interstate 81. This project proposes the creation of 2 lots and 1 residue to be served by public water and sewer. Lot 1 is approximately 5.6 acres, Lot 2 is approximately 19.2 acres, and the residue is just under 200 acres. County Engineer Dirk Stansberry issued a letter of approval on December 3rd, 2019, stating the above-mentioned project is found to be compliant. Since the project is found to be compliant with the 2009 Berkeley County subdivision ordinance, staff recommends approval of the preliminary final plat.
Have anyone to represent the project?
Mike Roberts, Director of Project.
Planning Commission members, do you have questions of Mr. Roberts or of the staff?
If there are no questions, I move we accept staff recommendation and approval of the preliminary final plat.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Whitaker, second by Mr. Goff to accept staff recommendation and to approve the preliminary final plat for Linton Brothers. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is Collis Family Investments.
This is a request for preliminary final plat approval for Collis Family Investment LLC, Tract A, file number 60-19. The developer is Jason M. Stedman, surveyors Gregory Yabernetsky, located in the Opequon District, map 3, parcel 2.1. The property is on Route 12, Berkeley Station Road, half a mile south from its intersection with Route 5, Myers Bridge Road. Project proposes the creation of 1 lot and 1 residue to be served by public water and private septic. Lot 1 is approximately 19.94 acres, and the residue is approximately 270.75 acres. County Engineer Dirk Stansberry issued a letter of approval on January 30th, 2020, stating a review of the above-mentioned project had been completed and was found to be in compliance. Since the project is found to be in compliance with the 2009 Berkeley County subdivision ordinance, staff recommends approval of the preliminary final plat.
Do we have anyone to represent the project?
Greg Yabernetsky, represent the client.
Thank you. You have questions or comments regarding the project for Collis family lots of either Mr. Yavraninsky or of the staff?
Question, make a motion, we accept staff recommendations, approval of the preliminary final plat.
Second?
Motion by Mr. Lewis, second by Mr. Whitaker to accept staff recommendation and to move the project forward for the preliminary final plat. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed.
Thank you.
Next project is Dunkin' Donuts at Riverside.
This is a request for preliminary plan approval for Dunkin' Donuts at the Villages at Riverside, file number 36-17. The developer is Nick Patel. The engineer is Fox and Associates. Located in the Falling Waters District, map 6, parcel 262, on the southwest corner of Williamsport Pike, Route 11, and Corporate Boulevard West. This project is proposing the construction of a Dunkin' Donuts on 0.94 acres to be served by public water and sewer. No waivers or exceptions have been requested. On January 30th, 2020, County Engineer Dirk Stansberry issued a letter of approval and stated that the preliminary plan meets the requirements to advance to the final plat stage. Since the preliminary plan meets the requirements, staff recommends advancement of the preliminary plan to the final plat stage.
Do we have anyone to represent the project?
Yes, Clint Rock with Fox and Associates.
Thank you. Is this going to have ice cream in it too?
Not sure. I think this one.
It's just donuts.
Yeah.
Bring any samples? Just kidding.
Excuse me. Planning Commission members, do you have questions of Mr. Rock or of the staff?
If there are no questions, I move we accept staff recommendation advancement of preliminary plan to the final plat stage.
Motion by Mr. Whitaker, second by Mr. Goff, I think, to accept staff recommendation and to advance the project forward to the preliminary final plat. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed.
Thank you.
Overlook at Riverside.
This is a request for final plat determination for Overlook at Riverside PUD, Phase 2, lots 14 through 20, 117 through 126, 134 through 141, and 164 through 177. File number is 70-05. The developer is Rotz Family Limited Partnership. The engineer is Frederick Seibert and Associates. It's located in Falling Waters, map 7, parcel 160.3, at the end of Corporate Drive along the east side of Williamsport Pike, US Route 11, approximately 500 feet south of the intersection with Interstate 81. The project proposes 17 single-family lots and 22 townhome lots on approximately 4.9 acres to be served by public water and sewer. On April 2nd, 2018, the developer was granted the following deviations for a planned unit development. 1, direct access to Boulevard will not be permitted. 2, sidewalk to be placed on North Side Boulevard. 3, plant fast-growing trees as a buffer between Brookfield and Overlook at Riverside. On September 16th, 2019, the developer was granted a waiver to Article 8, Section 801, Table 8-1A, reducing the parking for multifamily dwellings with a minimum of 1.86 spaces per unit being provided. This waiver pertains to the major plan change, which is currently under review and is not associated with this section of Overlook at Riverside. On January 24th, 2020, County Engineer Dirk Stansberry issued a letter of approval stating that a review of this project was completed and found to be in compliance. Since the final plat meets the requirements of the subdivision ordinance, staff recommends final plat determination and advertising of a public hearing for consideration of final plat approval at the March 2nd, 2020 Planning Commission meeting.
Okay, do we have anyone to represent the project?
Good evening, Ed Schreiber with Frederick Sovereign Associates, representing the Rotz Family Limited Partnership.
Thank you, Mr. Schreiber. Planning Commission members, do you have questions of Mr. Schreiber or of the staff?
If there are no questions, I move to accept staff recommendation and move the final plat determination and advertising of public hearing for the final plat's approval on March the 2nd at the Planning Commission meeting.
Motion by Mr. Whitaker, second by Mr. Goff, to accept staff recommendation to consider final plat approval at a public hearing on March 2, 2020. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. Next project is Nadenbush Pines.
This is a request for final plat determination for Nadenbush Pines Phase 1, lots 1 through 25 and 68 through 76. File number 43-04. The developer's ILA Properties Incorporated, surveyors Roberts Land Surveying. It's located in the Arden District, tax map 19, parcel 3.2. It's on Nadenbush Lane, approximately 1 mile east of its intersection with Winchester Avenue. The project proposes 34 single-family lots on approximately 48.8 acres to be served by public water and sewer. There have been no variances or waivers for this project. On January 24th, 2020, County Engineer Dirk Stansberry issued a letter of approval stating that a review of the above-mentioned project was completed and found to be in compliance. Since the final plat meets the requirements of the subdivision ordinance, staff recommends final plat determination and advertising of a public hearing for consideration of final plat approval at the March 2nd, 2020 Planning Commission meeting.
Okay, do we have anyone to represent the project?
Mike Roberts, here to represent the project.
Thank you, ma'am. Planning Commission members, do you have questions of Mr. Roberts or of the staff?
If there are no questions, I move we accept the staff recommendation and approval of the final plat upon consideration of the public hearing for the March the 2nd Planning Commission meeting.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Whitaker, second by Mr. Goff, to accept staff recommendation and to consider final plat approval at the March 2 Planning Commission meeting, public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed.
Thank you.
I wanted to give all the Planning Commission members an update. We received letters at the Planning Commission office, and each of you were mailed a letter as well. So before I hand it out to you, I just want to give you a quick summary. The letters are from Mr. John Peacher. He's the neighbor of Eagle Auto Salvage Yard, and he has been expressing concerns over the last year or so, I believe, about the operations at Eagle Auto. So a copy of his letter is in this, and I'll hand it out to each of you. Staff has been involved in researching it and responding to him. Most recently, Brian Ross with County Engineering is headed out to do an inspection regarding any possible property maintenance violations, and I believe Andy's going to travel out there with him for that. So once they do that inspection and have another update, we'll share that with you as well. So I wanted to give you that information before I passed it out. And that's all I have.
Okay. Mr. Blake, do you have anything?
Everything I have.
If the commission is struggling on sidewalk waivers, when to grant them, when not to grant them, we can come up with specific language to make that easier for the planning commission if you want to. It seems becoming more of a discussion item, and if we're going into the subdivision ordinance regs, and if you have specific concerns or comments about that, let us know, and we'll try to put those in the subdivision ordinance, so that basically, really the waiver should be an exception, not a. And if it's continuously being granted a waiver, then there's something wrong with the ordinance. A waiver should be an exception, not the rule. So either there's something wrong with our ordinance, or there's something wrong with the waiver language. So I think that's something that we definitely need to look at as we move forward, present an ordinance amendment, because every single meeting shouldn't have an exception to the rule. It's usually the rule, and you abide by it, and very rarely you get the variance or exception. So with regards to anything else, I'll defer this evening.
Anything on Archer's Rock? Is that one of the tenants out there or residents out there is asking me? I know that there's settlement on the, hold on a minute, was it Lexon? Are they?
Today, a lawyer made a notice of appearance for Lexon, was in contact with our office. So that's good news. We have someone now to speak to on behalf of Lexon. I'm confident that we'll get some success on that matter. Also, I'm happy to say that with the planning staff's assistance, that we're keeping up with the line of credits and the bonding. And last week we had to, the legal office had to send a letter calling the line of credit, and the next day a revised line of credit came in. So everything's up to date, and the new, just letting people know 15 days in advance prior to their line of credit expiring that we're calling it, it's getting movement. So that's good news. Very good. Anyway, any other questions?
Are we still working on getting adjusting the approval, or when we have the public hearings?
Yes. So Heather and I actually had a very good meeting last week with. So Region 9 has Baker under contract for consulting services. Heather and I had a meeting with Baker last week to maybe try to get some outside expertise with regards to the planning aspect of the subdivision ordinance. I'm very confident about the process that we're talking about and that the Planning Commission seems to be interested in. But in reviewing the ordinance and talking to Heather, we had a discussion with Baker about the possibility of looking at the planning aspect of the new ordinance to make sure it's actually what the Planning Commission and the community wants to take in consideration, like some of the sidewalk issues. Right. So Baker is, and again, because it's through Region 9's contract, they've already put it out to bid. So we're expecting a scope of work from them on no later than Friday, which then we'll discuss with the county council about how they want to proceed. But Baker is doing subdivision ordinance currently for the city. They've just wrapped it up for Charlestown and others. So we're trying to get this ball moving, and if we would do something like this to have some professional consultant help, we think that we could get something adopted this calendar year.
Well, the reason I asked is because, like, if the waivers could be after, like, stormwater, like request for waivers, because that would have been helpful to see if they, if Fox Associates came with that project down Pleasant Court, that if they could show that they didn't have room to have their stormwater management facilities, then maybe we could have the sidewalk.
Right, Dirk pointed out that that's a 50-foot right of way along there.
Okay, then yeah, that's fine.
And
public thinks that they would sidewalks in.
Yeah.
Like they're thinking about everywhere, not just
On their property.
yeah.
Likely, yes, they're gonna be.
the way your ordinance is written, it's along a sidewalk should be along a public right of way, and it's it's difficult to catch up. You know, had 20 years ago, for example, everyone put their sidewalks along the public right of way, then there'd probably be sidewalks on Route 11 and Edward Miller
What-
Boulevard and
There used to be sidewalks on Route 11.
Really?
Yeah, you dig up Route 11, you'll find concrete on both sides of Route 11.
yeah.
So that part's on the bumper.
Mhm. There's a sidewalk that down to the property on Butler's Chapel Road. You got Butler's Chapel Road, there's a sidewalk, and there's nothing.
And
He
then,
didn't even, he just did what the plan said, put the sidewalk to each end of his property. Mhm. No otherwhere, yeah.
and that's actually one piece of preliminary advice that when we were talking about the subdivision ordinance is you have a comp plan that you adopted and it has a land use map component in it and about how to tie your new subdivision regs into that land use map so that the standard for Back Creek Valley isn't the same for right around I-81 or right around the town, the city limits. So that was very intriguing because, you know, as you get more dense, it's more infrastructure heavy. As you get out into the rural areas, it's less infrastructure heavy.
Well, I think you're very accurate in your statement that most people just assume that we're going to give them a sidewalk exemption. And that project there at Meadow Lane, he was kind of like, what? Yeah, what do you mean? I have to do a sidewalk?
It should be opposite. The assumption should be that you're not going to grant a
Yes,
waiver
yeah.
and that the applicant needs to prove why
Exactly.
they. So it's opposite. I mean, it's almost the burden has shifted. I mean,
Yeah.
and that's not the way it actually should be.
Can we, in the ordinance, let's say, and I'm thinking of future, sometimes it's hard to plan now for 20 years. But if there's a sidewalk easement or a buffer that could be established, you don't have to put it in, but the property be there, does that make sense?
At a minimum, they should grade it and have it prepared for a sidewalk at a minimum.
Yeah.
And, you know, I have not looked about the county, but I know a lot of cities, it's easier for cities because cities own the infrastructure. Even if you exempt the sidewalk, they have to pay into what's called a sidewalk bank. So then the city installs the sidewalk in a predetermined grid. So that everyone, one way or the other, is paying for the sidewalk. And then the exemptions don't become as advantageous because you're either paying to put in the sidewalk or you're paying to have someone else put the sidewalk in.
Yeah.
It's the same. It's equal. And it's going to be a little bit more of a challenge to figure out how to do that on a county level since the county doesn't own right-of-ways. You know, if you have a road in the state of West Virginia, it's either owned by the state, it's owned by the city, it's owned by the HOA, or it's orphaned. The county has no road, so.
Well, that's the misconception, though, that most of the people that come in here, and certainly this evening, they may have heard Orphan Road, but they don't really know what the concept was of Orphan Roads. And, you know, you heard the lady saying Orphan Road, well, I don't even know what that is.
And a lot of times you call it orphan road, you do the title research on it, and you go back. That property was owned by somebody at some point. So, you know.
So, like for instance, in that situation, there's a development, but it's been in there for how long? It's an old development. So you go back to the original owner. I mean, that could be 50 years ago.
Right. Yeah.
200 years ago.
Yeah.
And those issues aren't as pertinent anymore with subdivision regs that require homeowners associations now, but that wasn't required before.
Do you think it's novel? I never even thought about it. Really? That's not a bad idea.
I got about 3 of them I could use. I just got to get them out of my
So
basement
why
to
my
full line. Mhm.
Well, they're gonna collapse someday, remember that.
Yeah, right when a school bus goes.
Right when a school bus is over, and then we're gonna be responsible for it.
5-gallon bucket.
The other issue with the sidewalks is,
Oh, I guess not for snow removal.
easily. To
But then you're at the jail. Okay, anybody have anything else that they'd like to, chew around here a little bit? If not, motion by Mr. Goff to adjourn at 7:22. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Smith. All those in favor?
All in favor, stand up. Eagle School auto parts have been out there for at least 30 years. And the sewer plant's right there beside it.
Right. Miles that way. I don't know if it's buy after the fact.
I don't know.
I recognize it. I'm familiar with it.